When my HOA president called my old stone well an eyesore, I laughed it off. After all, it had stood there for 60 years, watering my garden and my memories. It was more than just a structure. It was a piece of my family's history, a landmark on the little plot of land I called home. I never thought something so benign, so much a part of the landscape, could become a source of conflict. But in a quiet suburb, sometimes the smallest things create the biggest waves. Then came the first notice. Then another, words like violation. And community aesthetics started invading my mailbox, tucked between bills and junk mail. The orange slips of paper felt aggressive, out of place. I'd lived here for 20 years and never had a single complaint. Now suddenly this well, my well, was a problem. The tone of the letters grew sterner with each one, threatening fines and further action. I decided to talk to Linda Cooper, our new HOA president, face to face. I found her on her morning walk, clipboard in hand, of course. I told her the well was functional, that it irrigated my award-winning roses and the vegetable garden my late wife had planted. She smiled that official, empty smile and said, "Rules are rules, Daniel. We have to maintain a certain standard." It was like talking to a brick wall, a very polite, condescending brick wall. 2 weeks later, I heard it, a low rumble that grew into a grinding roar. I ran to the back window, and my heart sank. A cement truck was backing into my yard. Its massive chute was positioned directly over my well. I yelled, I pleaded, but the workers just shrugged, pointing to a work order signed by the HOA. I stood there helpless as they drowned 60 years of history in a torrent of gray slurry. By evening, it was over. My well was gone, replaced by a gray tombstone in the middle of my lawn. The silence that followed the truck's departure was deafening. The air, usually filled with the sound of birds and the scent of damp earth, now just smelled of dust and defeat. I just stood there, staring at the ugly, flat slab of concrete that had erased a part of my past. It was a monument to pettiness. That night, I couldn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my desk and pulled out the HOA bylaws, a document I had skimmed once and filed away. 97 pages of tiny print. I read every single line, fueled by coffee and a cold, quiet anger. And then I found it. Buried deep in Article 12, Section D, was one golden sentence. A detail so specific, so technical, that I knew Linda had overlooked it. The plan started to form. It wasn't about revenge. It was about the rules she was so fond of quoting. I drafted a formal complaint, attached photos of the well before and after, and highlighted the specific bylaw she had violated. I printed 2 copies, one for the county water board and one for the HOA itself. As the printer hummed, a sense of control started to return. She wanted to play by the book. Fine. I had the whole library. By noon the next day, the county called her. Their tone, I can only imagine, was not friendly. By evening, she was on my porch. The confident smirk was gone, replaced by a strained, forced smile. She wanted to settle this neighbor to neighbor, to keep it quiet. I listened calmly, then told her I'd agree on one condition. I slid a piece of paper across the porch railing. It was an acknowledgement form drafted by me, stating that she, acting as president of the HOA, had authorized the filling of the well. It was her own trap, and she walked right into it. Anxious to make the problem disappear, She signed without a second thought. I watched the pen move across the paper, sealing her fate with her own signature. The ink was barely dry before I said a polite good night. The next morning, I scanned the signed document and attached it to an email. The subject line read, "An important update regarding community property." Then I clicked Send to All. The email went out to every single homeowner in our association. I pictured phones buzzing all over the neighborhood, a digital ripple effect that would soon become a tidal wave. The quiet was about to be broken. Within hours, the board called an emergency meeting, and for the first time since this whole mess began, I was explicitly invited. I walked into that community hall and saw Linda at the head of the table, looking pale. The other board members were not looking at her with support, but with accusation. My email, with her signature attached, was projected on the wall for everyone to see. A few days later, county inspectors arrived. They carried clipboards and measuring tapes, their faces serious and professional. Their verdict was swift and unambiguous: an environmental violation, the illegal obstruction of a natural groundwater source. The fine wasn't just for the HOA, it was personal. They had created a significant environmental and legal issue that couldn't be ignored. Linda tried to blame me, of course. She claimed I had somehow tricked her, but the lead inspector simply pointed to the document in his hand. My document with her signature, clear as day. "Ma'am," he said, "this paper says you took full responsibility." In that moment, the entire room went silent. You could feel the power shift, like a change in the weather. The game was over. The fallout was immediate. The HOA, desperate to distance itself from her actions, fined her the maximum amount for gross misconduct. On top of that, the county billed her personally $14,000 for the cost of removal and environmental remediation. Then, in a special vote, just 2 days later, the board officially removed her as president. Her reign was over. The gavel struck, and her chair was left empty. Contractors were back in my yard a week later, but this time they were there to fix the damage. They jackhammered the concrete slab, and beneath the dusty rubble, my well still lived. As they cleared the last of the debris, I saw it clean water bubbling up from the earth. The sound of the jackhammer faded, replaced by the familiar, welcome sound of birdsong. A week after that, clear, cool water flowed from the spigot again. I filled a bucket and watered my wife's roses. Justice, I discovered, tastes clean and clear, like fresh well water. It was more than just a victory. It was a restoration. Things were back as they should be. The balance had been restored, not just in my yard, but in our community. A month later, Linda's house went up for sale. The sign in her yard had a bright red sticker on it that read, "Price reduced." I watched the moving truck pull away, not with a sense of triumph, but with a quiet sense of finality. I never wanted revenge, just respect for the rules that she, in her arrogance, chose to ignore. The system worked, but only because I forced it to. Sometimes the best solutions are found in the fine print, and the best traps are the ones that are perfectly legal. The rules are there for everyone, not just for those in power to wield against others. What would you have done if your HOA destroyed your property? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for